Good to see you. Are you well?
Yep.
Good. So how does back-to-back Premier League victories sound and feel this afternoon?
Obviously, it feels good. Both well earned for different reasons. And I think the reason it feels good is the performance levels, though. Not, we haven't lucked out in the last 6 games. We've played very well in all of them. The first half against Man U, they were better than us. But the second half, we were very strong. And I think that's probably the only half where we've come away from our performance level. So I've been really pleased with that side of things. And then, you believe in the performance level of the players over a season, and then they've got, earned the right for the last 2 back-to-back wins. And I think that's more. I'd have took 2 lucky ones, I'll make it clear, but it's more enjoyable when the team have earned it by their performances.
We know you often say never get too up when you're winning, never get too down when you're losing. But last night we saw Antonio Conte, after the 4th defeat in 5 for them, say that he has to talk to the club. He's too honest to close his eyes and continue in this way and also take his salary. I just wonder, are they feelings that you've ever experienced as a manager? And I suppose, how do you kind of get through times like that?
I can't speak for the manager. They all have their own situations. I don't know what the situation is in there. He's a very experienced manager. He's won, many things. And he's worked with some of the top players, certainly in Europe, if not the world. So he'll have a feeling of why his words are what they are. I certainly wouldn't throw an opinion on that. In my experience, it's a tough job. And the only thing I would say is it's weirdly kind of, I don't know what the word is, it's quite levelling when you see managers of his level still finding the job tough, still finding the challenges that come with it. And that, because you do forget, it is a tough job, even for some of the most experienced managers out there. It's still a tough job, it's still a tough ask at times. And he's obviously feeling that, I don't know, about maybe the team or not, how he wants it, or the club or whatever. I don't know, but he'll have his own explanations on that. Certainly not for me to explain, other than my respect for managers like him.
But what gets you through tough times, Sean?
Just remembering the responsibility of what I have to do, remembering my responsibility to the club, remembering my responsibility to my players and staff, just the varying challenges that come your way. Experience helps, of course, or my personal experience in football as a player and a coach and a manager. Just staying steadfast to what you believe in. At the end of the day, you take a few knocks, you take a lot of opinion from the outside of what you do. But staying steadfast to what you truly believe, and I just do that. I just stay really steadfast to what I believe is right for my staff and the players here and for the club. And I try not to waver too far from it, whilst hoping to be flexible enough to continue learning and adapting to the challenge.
Antonio also said before the game that he was sure that you could save this season. So how sure are you at this moment?
I've never been not sure. I've never really overthought it. I've always believed in what the players are doing. I've always believed in the power of a group of people when noses point in the right direction, which they quite obviously are. And I've always believed in working to get things right, because you can work as hard as you want. I don't think we're that far wrong all season, but we haven't got the points on the board. So the league doesn't lie. I equally believe in that. I don't stare at it, but it doesn't lie. You are where you are. But there are some slight mistruths along the journey, and I think we're probably not got the points that we've deserved over a season. We have to keep fighting for that, and you just hope every season some of them ones that got away pay you back. We'll see, but no, the belief is always there in what we do.
We've touched over the last few weeks over the forward options that you have at the moment as well, Sean. Is this the best group of forwards that you've had at the club? And I suppose, what kind of a difference does that kind of selection, not problem, but the selections that you have, the decisions that you have to make up top, what difference do they make when you've been in this kind of situation?
Well, we've only just got Barnsley coming back fit. Vince has been in and out of fitness all season. J-Rod as well, COVID, bits of injury. So, it's been Woody really, and then Val's come in and done very, very well. Maxwell adapting maybe from the number 10 role, sometimes wide. So, the variations of what you want as a manager, particularly I work with, whether it's a soft striker or 2 out-and-out strikers, you want that variation, and I think when it comes together, it can be a powerful weapon. And I think we've used that wisely down the years. I like the shape of the team. I like how it works. I like how it operates. And when it's working well, like it has been the last sort of 6 games, I think it can be very effective. And I think the last 2 games, particularly, with the quality of chance created, and taking chances, of course. And then, defensively, we've still shown a real strong base of what we work from. And I think it was there again last night.
Obviously, you've got a realistic chance of moving out of the bottom three this weekend. What difference would that make about the place psychologically?
I think it makes a radical difference. You know, we are where we are. They've accepted that the challenge of that. If you go out of it, it's not the season done. You know, because you go out of the bottom three, it's not the season done for anyone. Everyone knows that. So that's for everyone else to decide and talk about. I know when the season's done, and that's when that final whistle goes. So that's when it's important to be not in the bottom three.
And without meaning to get too far ahead of ourselves, you're obviously facing Palace now, 9 points behind them, yet you have 3 games in hand. Just saying, that's all.
Well done.
Shows how quickly things change, though, Sean.
Yeah, but we all know that. You know, 3 points can change the whole look of a season's work sometimes. It doesn't factually change the season's work, but it can change the look, it can change the rhetoric, change the feel around the story. I think our feel has suddenly changed from oh no to oh yes. Seems that way to me. You know, people texting me, people telling me stories out there, people suddenly sending me better news than what they were sending me 5 weeks ago. You know, the rhetoric changes, the storyline changes, the media changes, the social media changes. And then you get back to that kind of underdog spirit mentality. And everyone's saying, oh, Burnley, they're climbing again. They have this knack of coming out of it. They win games and all that sort of stuff. Well, they weren't saying that 6 games ago. That's just the way it is. So seeing through all the noise, getting on with the work that's right in front of you, that's what I tend to do. And that's what I want my players to do. And they're certainly showing very strong signs of doing that.
Top man. All the best, Sean. Cheers.
Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Vinny. Crabbers?
Hey, Sean. You mentioned belief a couple of times in that chat there. Whenever we talk to the more senior pros who've been there a while, they seem to have that already. So I'm just wondering, A, do they need reminding? And B, do some of the younger lads need sort of to buy into that belief that, you know, everything seems to be all right in the end?
Well, there's a lot of work that goes on for that sort of idea of everything seems to be right at the end. It doesn't just arrive at you. But the older group, they've maintained standards for a long time here. They understand the requirement of what we do, and they understand the requirement of the Premier League. We want that to rub off and all around, not necessarily the younger players, the new players we bring in as well. The culture, the environment that we've set. Some fit hand in glove. Vouch just walked into it as if he's been here for years. You know, the way he's accepted the challenge. Maxwell still continues to develop into it, mainly due to fitness ups and downs, to be honest, because he's a pleasure to be around the group. You know, there's just 2 examples. You know, Colo's gone under the radar, but it's been fantastic when he's played for us. Connor's now developing after having a real tough run of sort of niggly injuries and then a real worrying illness, actually, which has come through really, really well and looking strong, and he's adapting to the challenge. And then you got that healthy group dynamic where everyone's challenging, everyone's, you know, working hard for their place and respectful of the team that are playing. And then, you know, the return to the simplicity of performance. Jack Cork, I think, has returned to that again. You know, 2 back-to-back very strong performances. Josh Brownhill, very strong. Dwight McNeil looking strong again last night. You know, the peaks and troughs of the season. You hope you don't have too many troughs, quite obviously. And all of a sudden, we've got a collective where more and more players are playing well again. And I think that's going to be an important factor going forward. On the back of our experience of the division, which is statistically we're very strong physically in the second half of seasons, and we have points to return as well.
And while we're talking about sort of older and younger players, and while it's Crystal Palace as well, who I think had the oldest average last season, it's your turn this season to have the oldest starting 11 in the Premier League. How much does that matter anymore, given that a lot of the footballers, they look after themselves well? You've got your nutritionists and your fitness guys and all your stats. How important is age, or how relevant is age anymore?
It's only relevant if it becomes a problem. It's not a problem here. I believe the fitness, the attitude of the players is paramount. You know, the players look after themselves incredibly well nowadays, you know, and the demands and the support systems at football clubs. I think Palace, I'm not sure, you can double check, but I think they've put 80 or 90 million into lowering and reducing their squad, age of their squad, sorry. And it looks to me like they've done a good job of doing that. It's not easy. Whether you put money in or not, it's not easy to get your recruitment right. But they look so far like they're getting that right. The new manager's gone in there and sort of organised it how he wants it, and they're looking like a decent outfit. So, you know, there's no gimme, even when you're spending money. But when you're talking about lowering age bands and stuff like that, that takes a while, you know, unless you are going to put in 100 million or whatever, then it takes a while, you know, and then even if you do put that money, you've got to blend that team together. So we're trying to get the process right. It's taking a bit of time. We've got to work hard this season to stay in the Premier League. And then with players like Maxwell, players like Colo, players like Connor coming in, just blending that kind of experience with the newness and the edge, if you like, of a younger style of player who's got that freedom to go and play. And if you get that kind of combination right, then it works for your advantage, obviously. But I've never been ageist. I had Michael Duffier playing in the first team in the Premier League at 36, 37, and still learning his trade at that time. You know, the minutiae of what it is and the details. So, you know, I've never been worried about that. But obviously, we do want the future. We want to continue in the Premier League, and we want to keep layering up on that future. So there has to be a time when some of them players go to pastures new, or it comes their time, like with Duffier.
And just one final one, if I may, just in terms of the players, just run through I think you had 5 who were either out or doubts. Matej, have you got, is he now near, is he now?
No, Matej is on the grass, but he's recovering with the sports science and the injury team stuff.
Ash Westwood?
Ash has cleared his positive, he's cleared his protocols, so he's back in training today.
Maxwell?
Maxwell's foot injury, touch and go. We'll see how he is tomorrow. It's not a really serious one, but a bit sore still.
Johan and Charlie.
Johan's going to be a while. Not great news with Johan with a tear in his calf, so that's going to be a bit of time yet. Charlie will be back in and around the squad.
And any new ones from Spurs last night?
No, nothing from today. Just a few bumps and a few knocks. Obviously today's been a recovery day, so we'll double check the fit list tomorrow morning.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Danjul?
Afternoon.
Is
it going to be a nice problem to have, potentially welcoming some of those players back into the fold with performances having been as good as they've been in the last couple of games?
I don't think I've got an amazing colour, but I think Beardy looks particularly ill today, particularly anemic. Looks like you've been on a ship for too long. You imagine back in the day, and they go to port and they suddenly golf, and everyone goes, "Wow, look, I must have been at sea a long time." It's like that. Sorry,
and I've got scurvy.
I was suggesting there's a possibility. We'll see how your questions go to decide whether you have or haven't. Anyway, sorry, if you can repeat that'd be marvellous.
I was going to say, I thought I asked a really very insightful and interesting question there, and you were too busy using the pump.
Did I say that out loud? I didn't actually mean for them words to go out. Sorry.
Yes, well, I'm sure this will be kept in by all these different outlets, so I look forward to that. I was just going to say, is it going to be a nice problem to have? Potentially welcoming those players back who've been so important for you this season and in the past, but having had such a strong group performance for the last few games?
Well, the thing that you're hoping to bring to life, all managers is when your team's performing well, and then the group outside of that are chomping at the bit because they're realising, they've been in the team, come out the team for whatever reason. It might be injury, illness, it might be just a dip in form where we've changed things. And you want that competitive element, and the main thing to get that competitive element is quite obviously having players fit. If you've got a whole group of players who are all fit, as long as their nose is still in the right direction and they stay on board with the group, then that must be a more powerful thing, and that's what we're hoping to get. So I want the challenge of everyone being fit. That's part of mine and my staff's job to work within that idea of everyone being fit, to pick the team that can win a game. And I think we've got a very competitive group here when we are all fit. So we keep working. The sports science team and the physios keep working to try and get us back to full fitness. And so far, we're looking stronger with that. We just got to stay on the right side of it.
There was understandably talk and debate, particularly in these press conferences, when you left Dwight McNeil on the substitutes bench after he started so many games in a row. Does that show sometimes that players benefit from that sort of thing? And watching Dwight in the game against Spurs, and watching all your players, to be honest, they didn't look burdened by your position in the table. They didn't look like they were playing under pressure. Is that a difficult thing to give them, some freedom?
It is. It comes from sometimes our words, sometimes the strength of our fan base, which has been fantastic again last night, to allow the players that freedom to play and give them time to play. And sometimes it's the ownership of the players. I think they've been fantastic. The way they're taking on what's going on around them, the challenge in the next game, the fearlessness of the performance last night against the side who are a very strong side, just beat Man City, with that kind of euphoric last minute kind of situation, or last knocking kind of situation. Look, we want players like Dwight to play. I love it when he's playing with a smile. He certainly has done it down at Brighton the last night, attacking again, carrying the ball forward. A couple of fantastic crosses. I mean, the quality of his crossing is superb. Look, he's a young player still, and sometimes you get wrapped up in your own moment, and he did a little bit. He's a very conscientious lad, loves his football, and takes it very seriously. Sometimes too seriously. And we had a chat with him, and then locked in a little bit. I told him I was leaving him out, and I said, but don't be surprised if you're back in. And he went back in, and he's delivered very, very good performances.
There's a lot spoken about your defensive strength, and I'll come on to that in a minute because I've got a couple of questions about that. But when you've got that, can you allow a few players, a few individuals to take a few more risks because you know that the back door is safely guarded?
Well, I think it's helpful, as I've spoken about. Every manager, it doesn't matter what level you're at, they still want to try and find the balance between the attacking prowess and the defensive shape and the requirements of defending well in the Premier League. I've never for one moment thought that Pep takes that lightly. I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sure he still looks at when he's attacking, the free-flowing style that they use. What about in transition? Why do you think they get after the ball so quickly? Because they know they have to win it back quickly, because if not, they're open. So they do that very well, and they're arguably one of the most powerful sides, certainly in Europe, possibly the world, who knows. And they're still working at the right mixture. They still know they've got to defend well. So we're no different in that aspect, and most managers, most coaching staffs are always trying to look for that. What is the balance that we can find when we can attack, to make chances, to open up the opposition, and then working on transition so quickly to make sure you're not too open. And I think we're doing that better and better.
Aside from scoring goals and winning games, Sean, is there much more satisfying than seeing a player fling himself in front of a shot and block it and get congratulated by their teammates? Because the individuals in your team, I think Tarkowski's top in the Premier League for blocks, and Mee's up there as well. And it seems to be something that your players relish.
Part of the requirement of football. It's a very simple equation. If you're a defender, get hit with the ball, that's part of your job. No great accolades from me about it. That's your responsibility. It is when you're here anyway. If you're a fullback, stop crosses, well, then you've got to get hit by the ball. That's part of your job, and it's a responsibility. It is only football, You don't get set at you. You don't really have that much. So I do remind them of that. You
don't see it everywhere, though. Are those the basics we hear managers talking about?
No, you didn't ask me about everywhere else. You just asked me about me and us. That's my requirement for what I require from my defensive unit. And all over the pitch, by the way, not just the defenders. Aaron Lennon's as good as you get at pressing. He'll get blocks in, he'll put his foot in, don't worry about that. Vout's shown that. Vout's defending from the front's been excellent since he's been here. Barnsley does it ever so well. Jay Rod will put his body on the line when he needs to. These are players you can defend from the front, They used to tell me stories of Ian Rush. I was a Liverpool fan. He used to tell me he was one of the best defenders from the front you'd ever see because of his closing down and the rapid pace he'd get there, the way he'd get a foot across things. There's different ways of defending, but usually at some point you have to make physical contact with either the ball or the man with the ball, and that's just a requirement of the game.
You're clearly hard to beat, Sean. We've talked about draws this season quite a lot, haven't we? I think you're playing Palace this weekend. Below Palace, I don't think anybody has lost fewer games than you. If you are really hard to beat and you've added winning, is that an even bigger asset?
Well, it's certainly you don't want it any other way. I think that's some Tottenham drew level on losses last night. I think that's right, 9 each. I'm not putting ourselves in Tottenham's category, but that's a pretty solid stat to have. I think we've conceded less goals than Tottenham. I think we've obviously spoken of the strength within the attacking third and the detail in the attacking third. If we get that right, then the stats suggest that we'll be in good shape going into these remaining games. And I think that's what we want to do. We want them stats to be right. We want the defensive prowess to remain. We want the freedom to go and attack. And I think that's building. I think the mentality to do that and the work ethic of the players is building towards that. We've got to keep doing it. It's a continued work in progress over a season, like it always is for us.
3-3 draw with Palace back in November. Was that a very different kind of game to what we've had recently? Because at the moment it feels inconceivable that you'd have a 3-3 draw.
Look, it can be like that. You get the odd game, the odd anomaly in football when it's a bit like that, and chances go in whether there's lots of chance or not. I don't think you see it all the time in our games, and nor would I want it. 1-0 still a fantastic score for any manager. Make no mistake. I speak to managers far and wide, and everyone loves the one when you look after yourself properly and you win 3-0 and all of that. Every manager loves that. But then 1-0s are important over a season to any manager. When you're at the top, the middle, or the bottom, they're important. So we take as much value as a 1-0 win over Tottenham as what we do in a 3-0 win over Brighton. Better for the fans, quite obviously, but for management and for players, they respect a 1-0 win, and that's a powerful one last night against a good Spurs side.
It's not often that you can see 3 goals in a game like you did in that one. It only happens a few times a season normally. Is that what has changed since that first Palace game to now? Are you in a much stronger position within the group now?
I think the continued adaptation to the challenge from myself, the staff, and the players, the acceptance of it. Like I say, you get some reminders over a season's work, and we all felt as a collective that we stepped away from it against Leeds. That was a real turning point, and it turns out, in a strange way, a positive turning point. So I think that was a bit of a low point for us, where we went, no, that's not us. That's a long way from being us. And we spoke with the players about it, and the strength of the group is when they take ownership of that as well. It's, you can only share words. At the end of the day, they have to take responsibility of their actions, and they certainly have to. We went out to Arsenal, and as you'll know, a very good display, a defensive display, but very organised, real work ethic from the players. Fans down there respected that, and we've built on the back of that. That's the big thing, building on it, and now moving forward. And now we've got to continue doing that. There's no gimmies. You've got to keep earning the right, and we are beginning to do that, and we are beginning to show that.
Thank you very much. I'll go and disembark from my ship.
It's a fair one. And have an orange. You got a little titter in it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Ian Parker.
Hi, Sean. You spoke there about getting that competitiveness within the squad when you've got the players fit. When you're in a period like this where you've got sort of games every few days, midweek games, when you're playing catch up with the fixtures, but you're also building some momentum. Where do you find that balance between refreshing the squad with maybe some fresh legs, but also keeping the group that's playing so well?
A bit in between, really, working to fathom out the downtime and the collective downtime, the re-energising, the dietary support, the recovery support, the different strategies we try and use, the rehydration and all the rest of it. I mean, there's each person will respond, to recovery protocols in different ways. You have to have sort of a generic idea, but everyone will have their details within it. As regards the game schedule, never thought beyond playing the best side. If you're ready to play, you should be ready to play. I want to play every game, so why shouldn't the modern player want to play every game? So I'm never even worried about that. If those are fit and well, they're playing, and I've made it quite clear. If you're picked to play, I expect you at maximum all the time. That's your responsibility as a player.
Yeah. And we've spoken a bit about Palace there, not only the game that you played earlier in the season, but also the way that they've changed their squad this season. What's your read on what Patrick Vieira's changed maybe from last season since he's come in?
Well, I think Roy got him in a good place, and then they had a big shift in contracts being out and stuff like that. Looks to me like they've recruited well, and it looks to me like he's adapted that group to how he's kind of wants it. Playing out the back, playing slightly more open at times, trying to find that. Still got to try and find the balance, of course, to defend and attack. They had a bit of a tough spell, and then they got a good result last night. I think that was their first victory since Christmas. I think. They've had a blip, if you like, and a few games where it hadn't gone right for them. Good win last night, and it sort of changes the feel again. But it's not easy to blend the squad, so the manager's working hard with them, as we all are, with their groups and respective groups. But they've managed to do that so far pretty well. So we've got to remember they're a decent outfit. Our record at Palace is strong over the last few seasons. We've delivered very good performances down there, but we have to go down there yet again with the right mentality, yet again with the right workload and work ethic of what we've delivered in the last 6 games to take them on. But we will do that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Alex James.
Hi, Sean. Just sort of following on from that, you mentioned there that Palace have obviously had to change quite a bit with the contract situation, and it's something Burnley may face in the summer, have faced a little bit in the past. Is there a little bit of a blueprint there as to how to go about doing that and lowering the age of the squad? Obviously taking the 80-90 million out of the equation perhaps a little bit as well.
I was going to say, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's 90 million in, it does help with any blueprint. But no, we do it. It's monitoring the players that you consider to still be giving you the edge and the performance that you need. It's monitoring then the players that you think are just time for them to leave for whatever reason, whether it's contractual, whether you just lose them because of the natural way that football works when contracts are up, or you can't renegotiate or can't renegotiate at the level that they want. And you're always looking on the outside of that. And so what can we bring in? Who's available for us to bring in? And it's always difficult. It's not an easy process. I mean, so far, early signs with Wout and with Maxwell, they're going to be good players. They look like they are. They're delivering at the moment. And Maxwell's had a couple of injuries, but, generally speaking, Connor the same. I think Connor the same. These are players that are coming in. They're looking like they're adapting to the challenge. Players that continually do. Eric Peters is doing fantastically well, as he tends to do. Varying players amongst the group, and all the whys and wherefores of all the challenges of contracts and the alignment of the right players to come in, but also the keeping of the players that are here. Everything's done very well for us.
Just on the contracts, do you feel if sort of maybe, I don't know, using Ben Mee as an example because he's captain, do you feel if you get a Ben Mee signed or one senior player signed that there might be a domino effect of others? Does it work like that, or is everybody individual as to what they're sort of looking at?
No, it certainly doesn't work like that. Every individual contract has a different situation. Every individual player has a viewpoint, often their agents, their families maybe. No, it's not as streamlined as that. You speak to the players, you speak to their agents. Nowadays, a lot of work's done with the agents. Some players want to talk to you about it, some players don't. I'm open house, whichever way they require. There's a lot of alignment goes on with these situations, whether it's bringing players in from the outside or dealing with the players you've got.
We spoke briefly about Josh Brownhill yesterday, and obviously he got his first goal at the weekend. Aaron Lennon's chipped in with two. There seems to be a bit more attacking intent from the midfield now. How much has Wout helped that in the way that he plays and perhaps brings them into play maybe a little bit more than was happening previously?
I think he's got a cleverness and a hold up to him. He can play with hold up football, back to goal style. Keep the ball. He delivers that. I think the energy of the performance is not just about that, that's for sure. The energy of the performance, the way the players are back on the front foot, it builds out of a confidence, an inner confidence, and then the layers as you perform better. And then you get that wave of attack, and suddenly we look like a side. I thought against Brighton, the number of times we broke out and the pace that we broke out at was very pleasing. And that's another thing about the Premier League. I think we've been a work in progress over the last few years. That transitional side of the game. When can you break quickly? And I think we've got an energy to that. And I think that's another thing that will help us going forward in scoring goals.
Last one from me. You had Lewis Richardson on the bench last night. You've obviously given him a new professional contract. Michael Mellon as well, another one out of the academy who's sort of rated very highly. I just wondered what your sort of thoughts on those two were and how you see their sort of progress going over the next year or two, whether it might be loans, etc.
Yeah, good players, young players, still learning. Rico's been really unfortunate with injury, but he's come back, he's worked ever so hard. He gets around it, he's been around it for a while now, and then out the first team's gone, just very unlucky with injuries. But we've got a few players who are coming through and they're beginning to just get around the peripheral edge of the squad and get them on loan, whether they stay with us. That's what we'll decide on an ongoing basis.
Lovely. Thanks, Sean. All the best for the weekend.
Thank you.